if you'd like to start out by introducing yourself and a little bit about the Brennan Center's work, please.
Yeah, sure. My name is Joanna Zdanys, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Elections and Government Program at the Brennan Center for Justice. The Brennan Center is a nonpartisan law and policy institute that is dedicated to strengthening and protecting our systems of democracy and justice in the United States.
And we're going to talk a little bit about this is the first cycle in which statewide candidates for the New York legislature can participate in a statewide matching program. So before we get into a little bit about what the matching program is and how it works, if you could sort of talk a little bit about what some of the early response has been.
Sure. So the New York State Public Campaign Finance Program is off to a really strong start, and it's responding to a real need out there for campaigns that are responsive to the needs of everyday New Yorkers. More than 300 candidates for state legislature have enrolled in the program for the current cycle, which is a much stronger showing than we typically see for the first run of this type of program. We're also seeing that this is a program with really broad appeal across the state and the political spectrum. Candidates from more than 3/4 of the state's legislative districts are participating in the program, including candidates from rural, urban, and suburban districts. And that includes incumbents and challengers, Democrats and Republicans, and others across the political spectrum, and candidates from upstate and downstate alike.
One of the things I think is really interesting about the New York program is that it matches funds from donations from constituents. So in a New York senator or assembly member's district. Can you please talk a little bit about how the design of the program is sort of helping to connect candidates to the people in their districts?
Sure. So just as you said, for a small donation to be matched with public funds, it has to come from within the district that a candidate is running to represent. And that really shifts the incentives of the campaign finance system in New York State as we know it, which has traditionally been dominated by big donors, a lot of out-of-district donors, and even out-of-state donors. And this rebalances that and gives candidates the opportunity to be able to meaningfully fundraise and seek their campaign support from the very people that they're seeking to represent. It does that through a multiple match that provides a multiple of public funds to constituent donations. It shifts depending on the size. It can be as much as 12-1 for the first $50 of a contribution and scales down from there. But the bottom line is that this gives everyday constituents also a lot more power in the political process. Folks who might only have, $5 or $10 to donate to campaigns and might have decided that that wasn't worth it for them, can now have more skin in the game. And those who are running to represent them have an alternative for how they power their campaigns. And it's really powerful.
That's awesome. And last year, the Brennan Center put out an analysis that looked at a little bit of how this could revolutionize New York fundraising, about how much more candidates could be fundraising from the people they're running to represent and from people who they hope will be their constituents.
So under the pre-public financing status quo, small donor constituents made up a tiny fraction of political giving in New York State. In the last state legislative elections, small donors only made up about 11% of giving to legislative campaigns. But our research projected, and this is based on real campaign finance data, based on real campaigns, that if the program had been in place in 2022, that small donors actually, with their donations multiplied by the program, stood to be the most significant part of campaign fundraising and could have multiplied their influence sixfold. That's what we're really one of the things that we're really excited to see for the upcoming cycle is to see the increased role of everyday donors in our elections. And of course, the election is not over. Candidates are still fundraising, and data will come out after the election. But from what we saw in the primary, based on a more limited data set, we have seen that the program appears to be working as it was intended, and that recipients of public campaign financing, on the whole, were taking in the largest proportion of their campaign funds from small donors and from the matching funds with the program. And I think that speaks to an acknowledgement and a realization within our political landscape that voters are looking for alternatives. They're, dissatisfied with the status quo nationally about the role that wealth plays in our politics, and equally so here in New York State. But also candidates are looking for alternatives as well. When you talk to office holders and when you talk to other candidates launching a campaign for the first time, you often hear how much they really don't like fundraising and sitting in a back room and dialing for donations from wealthy donors. And the great innovation of this program is that by providing a meaningful multiple of matching funds to those who choose to participate in the program, is that they can then fundraise the same way that they campaign and actually get out into the community and speak with their constituents and talk about the issues that are important and be able to power their campaign at the same time. They don't have to decide between, whether they're going to raise big checks and engage with the people that they want to represent.